Welcome, glad you're here. I'm Jen Lepore, Marketing Team Coordinator here at Custom Processing Services, and today we're kind of stepping back and taking a look into the broader chemical manufacturer landscape and CPS's involvement with SOCMA, which is the Society of Chemical Manufacturers and Affiliates. Today, we are joined by Jenny Gaines, Vice President of Membership of SOCMA, and Joe Dettinger, Vice President of Manufacturing Commercial Programs. And together, they're bringing a very unique perspective on how SOCMA supports its members, what CPS gains from the involvement with SOCMA, and what's happening across the contract manufacturing industry right now. So thank you so much for joining me, Jenny and Joe. I appreciate it.
Great to be here.
Thank you for having us.
Jenny, let's start us off here. So can you kind of briefly explain to us what SOCMA is, what and who it serves and why it plays such an important role in the specialty and fine chemicals industry?
Absolutely. So SOCMA is the only trade association in North America that's solely focused on the specialty batch chemical manufacturers and their supply chain. So we at SOCMA offer a very holistic approach as to how we support our members in the industry. I always tell people when they come to SOCMA, we're looking to help you get into a business-rich environment where you can grow your company. We also provide those manufacturing and operations programs where you can operate safely and efficiently. And on the Hill, we are your voice. We're your advocate in helping to navigate or remove some of those impediments that would prevent you from being successful as a specialty chemical manufacturer. So that's our mission. Our members are not only the manufacturers, which makes up about 100 of our 155 plus members. We also have distributors and service providers who really provide a lot of resources such as engineering, technology, law firms, and that's such, to help you guys be able to operate and again, be successful. That's what we're here to do.
So, you touched on it. SOCMA supports companies just across the specialty chemical value chain. And, what are some of the key benefits SOCMA membership provides to companies like custom processing services?
So the key benefits, again, fall into those, just like our mission, we have all of our programs into three core buckets. That commercial side, and that's where we're going to have our SOCMA show, where that traditional, connectivity on a, trade show floor. We also have our lead sheet service, which is that B2B matchmaking service that that our members have access to year round. And then, of course, we're going to showcase you, in our member services directory and provide you a lot of industry intel on that commercial side that'll help you make some very key strategic business decisions. On the manufacturing and operations side, we have our environmental health and safety program, Chem Stewards. We have our ChemOps training, our online, training program that helps set that standard, for safety on the plant floor. And we also do a lot of gap analysis and work with our members, one-on-one, through our manufacturing and operations side. And then, of course, there's that advocacy side. And one thing that I think sets SOCMA apart from a lot of other trade associations is that personalized advocacy we offer. Of course, we're going to have, that overarching, the big issues like TSCA and tariffs and those types of things. But one thing that SOCMA does bring to the table is about 40% of our time is spent on very company specific assistance. So, we want our members to pick up the phone and call SOCMA. That's what you're paying your dues for. We might not can take away every need for a consultant, but a lot of that is built into the SOCMA membership on the advocacy side. So again, we are your voice. We are there to support you, very much holistically through all of those key areas.
And, one thing that I don't think a lot of people may realize is, SOCMA supports members beyond advocacy. It provides, education, industry intelligence, and curated connections. And I think that's wonderful. And I think that's one thing I like about it is just constantly keeping us up to date. And especially in the safety end of things, our head of safety here at CPS, he gets a ton of information from SOCMA in regards to safety. So I think that's wonderful. And I think that's definitely something that I don't know that a lot of people realize you guys do.
Absolutely. And on the educational front, that's something that we build into our programming year round. So, at the show, there was programming that was really focused on the business side of things, the tariffs. We brought, one of our members from our affiliate organization, Thompson Hine, to talk about tariffs and and really be able to provide some of that key business information. We had a buyer toller panel, but also throughout the year, I do want to say, coming up in April, we have that sustainability and safety workshop. And, that's where we bring not only, again, that's the business development folks that are at the show, but the plant folks, those that are your technical, teams. They can come together at the sustainability and safety workshop and learn from each other, share best practices. And it's really focused to give them that educational opportunity as well. And then, of course, at the end of the year, we have our SOCMA Summit, where companies come together, the C-suite, the leadership teams, and that is very curated for that group to be able to look ahead. What can we learn from each other? What are you seeing down the road? We have our outlook, manufacturing outlook report, which Joe will talk about coming up. But again, there's those educational aspects for every single area of your team, whether they're on the plant floor, whether it's the business development and marketing folks, or whether it's the C-suite. So that's the way we curate our programming throughout the year. And we did just add an executive dinner series. And that's, again, something where we come to the different regions of the country and bring together these smaller groups so that they can really get and dig into those deeper conversations.
So, Jenny, from your perspective, how does CPS show up as an engaged and active SOCMA member?
So I always look at our membership as a partnership, and with any partnership and relationship, you get out of it what you put in. So, I want us to work together collectively, as a team. And so when you come on board, we get you engaged immediately with an onboarding, call where we really go through all of the benefits and opportunities for you to engage. Again, we want someone, from your business development and your C-suite, on that in that commercial pillar to really be involved in those resources. Your plan and operations folks in that manufacturing and operations pillar. All those programs and services. And then, on the advocacy front, a lot of our members are small to mid-sized companies, so they may not have that. So we are an extension of your team. So again, if you don't have that internally, having a designated person that can really, jump in on those committees, like you were saying, where you get that intel flowing into your inbox, even if you can't be on that call, sign up for those committees, based on what your role is in the company. So therefore you can get that coming to you. Again, we try to be that resource that gives you that first, like, hey, this is coming down the pike. You should be paying attention to this. Here's how it can impact you. And a lot of times when they're developing, comments or getting ready to go to the regulatory agencies or on the Hill, they're going to reach out to our members and say, we can talk all day long, but what does this mean to you? What information can you share with us that would help us make this case? And there's even opportunities too, where we, reach out to our members and bring them, into, Washington, D.C. to go with us to the regulatory agencies. I know Ken Drebick, your COO, is, a member of our board. We're going to be doing Hill visits and regulatory visits coming up at the May board meeting. So again, I think it's just making sure that you have the right folks on your team, engaged in the right areas. And again, and very holistic. A company like CPS, I know y'all started with the show, but I think, as you grew through SOCMA, the show and commercial may bring folks in, but some of those manufacturing and operations programs and the advocacy really does keep and sustain that membership long term.
Absolutely. You we're going into my next question, which you answered perfectly, because CPS is heavily involved with SOCMA in different ways, events, trade shows, industry initiatives, and all of that. So it definitely, attending the shows and the summit, and it's definitely formed so many connections. And I think, and I said this even at the show the one time to you, Jenny, it's one of those things where you see these people every year and you remember them. And there's always connections throughout the year that, if there's something that we cannot do, maybe they can do, and the other way around. And I think that's great. So, Joe, feel free to chime in on this as well. But what do you think people really get out of those face-to-face interactions, especially when there's still so many uncertainties out there with people that never heard of your company and they're kind of wishy-washy. They don't know what you do. They don't know how everything works. How do you think doing the face-to-face interactions help that?
Yeah. So in our industry, relationships are everything. We want when we're working with each other, with partners, right? So we could, like Jenny alluded to, we could be a competitor on one project and a partner on another project, right? So those relationships are extremely important. They need to trust, right? They need to focus on trust and build trust with each of these different organizations. So when you come to the show, what you'll find is a lot of the people that are there already know each other from prior, engagements and whatnot. And those who don't, they're quickly brought into the fold, and the conversation starts. That trust starts being built, and new partnerships are built right there on the show floor. And those partnerships translate to real business, right?
I couldn't agree more with that, because again, joining an association is very important too. Talking about the uncertainty, I always tell these companies, I mean, sometimes when things are uncertain and you're not sure what to do, some people will tend to just stay in their lane and okay, we need to stay here and not get out and do. We need to almost stay to ourselves and not be a part of that until things go by. But this is actually the time that I think that you need to lean into your trade association, because we are that, when uncertainty is out there, we are a certainty. We have been around 105 years, and we've been through a lot of times, where the industry probably, there were struggles. I mean, we go back to the pandemic and what was happening there. Think about what's going on now with tariffs. I mean, our members come together every Friday. SOCMA holds a weekly, Friday roundup, because things are happening at such a fast pace that that's an opportunity for just our members to come together in a safe space, hear what's going on. We keep you up to date on the changes that we've, heard throughout the week, what's coming up. And that way folks can ask questions, they can hear what's going on and be prepared. So those are the types of resources that, it's like I've heard one of our, former board chairs say, it made her feel like she's not alone. Sometimes you think, and you're sitting there right in your, facility, that hey, this is only happening to me. But if it's happening to you, likely that it's happening across the board to others, at least your size, of company or type of company. So collectively coming together is just such a, it's almost like, hey, I've found my group, my tribe, my folks that I can turn to during these times of uncertainty. And that's what SOCMA is for our industry and our members.
You said it so true. And, that's one thing that we found out when we did attend SOCMA, after talking to a couple other companies, it's like, okay, so they're seeing what we're seeing. And, this kind of leads me into the next topic, Joe, and I'm going to pick your brain about this, because the SOCMA's Contract Manufacturer Outlook Report in 2026 paints a picture of the industry that's resilient, but operating in a complex environment. At a high level, how would you kind of describe the current state of contract manufacturer industry?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing to understand is how widespread chemistry is, right? Everything that we use, everything that we touch, everything that we do is chemistry, right? The water we drink is chemistry, personal care products that are used, the paints we use, the fuels, our cars. And with the cars, it doesn't matter if it's a traditional car or an EV, right? They're all using chemistry. The same with solar panels and wind generators, right? It's all chemistry. It's a tremendous amount of chemistry. Generally speaking, the industry is strong, and it's really driven by what sector you're performing in and how diverse your business segments are across the sectors. So, for instance, pharmaceutical may be booming right now. It is, right? There are other industries that may not be booming right now, but they will be in the future. So there's one thing about the chemical industry is that while we may have peaks and valleys and troughs and whatnot, the certainty is that we're going to need the chemistry. So this provides a time for companies to be innovative, right? They can try new things. They can adapt and really show the resilience of the industry, because down the road, we're going to need the chemistry. We saw this in the pandemic, right? So going back, Jenny mentioned the pandemic. Going back 6 years ago, the pandemic just started. The world shut down. Grocery store shelves emptied, right? Of everything. And you saw that entire supply chain kind of fall apart. We still have supply chain issues today, but they're nothing like they were back then. And, despite everything else that's going on in this world, chemistry and the need for chemical manufacturing is strong and will continue to be strong.
Great. So, the report highlights ongoing uncertainty around trade and regulation and supply chains, yet also shows stability and confidence. So, how do you think companies right now are balancing those realities? What kind of stood out to you most in this year's findings?
I think what stood out, so there's two things that really stood out to me, and that is the level of certainty that can be found in uncertainty, right? This is the time to innovate. You're proving new concepts that's actively happening. So I think the other thing that was really intriguing to me was the speed at which needed chemistries can change, not only so fast, but also intensity, right? So a couple of years ago, if we would have looked at the data, you would have seen hydrogenation kind of dominating the needed. So the customers were looking for hydrogenation for their products. That has not only leveled off, but actually fallen. And we see other things like ethoxylation, esterification that have peaked. And over the past couple of years, they've been dropping off. And all of a sudden now they're doubling and tripling the need. So it's amazing to watch this industry work and how quickly it can adapt. And I mean, some of this is regulatory pressure. Some of this is reshoring, onshoring, nearshoring type of capacity that's currently happening as well. But it's just amazing to see how quickly these shifts can happen inside of our industry.
So one theme that, kind of comes through clearly in the Outlook report is the regionalization and the resilience. So what are you seeing in terms of companies prioritizing North American manufacturing and regional partners?
Yeah, so I think a couple of reasons we need to look at what this really means is that due to the fracture of supply chains over the past 10 years or 6 years, specifically with COVID, there has been almost a restructure on the value chain and the placement of the value chain. We want the chemistry to either be made closer to the customer or somehow make sure that the shipping is decreased to make sure that we're meeting the on-time demands of the customer, right? So what we're seeing is not only domestically, but globally, there's a shift for regional manufacturing. We want to be as close as possible to the manufacturing and or as close as possible to the consumer, the customer. So that's happening globally. Here within the States, we measured this 2 years ago because we wanted to kind of see how, not only if it's happening, right? Because people are talking about this. They're constantly saying they're hearing of projects, but we really wanted to measure whether or not this is truly happening. And a couple of years ago, we saw indications that yes, it was happening, but it was limited in demand, but also limited in success of making the project happen. However, what we've seen is that that's picking up. So we're still in the infancy stages, but it is picking up, and there's going to be a more significant shift back to North American manufacturing as we progress. Again, if you look at what's going on in the world today, some of those things are going to push this to happen. The customers are also going to push this to happen as well. One of the customers that's out there, a big customer that's out there I was talking to, they're going as far as East Coast, West Coast, right? So I need the end product needs to be used on the East Coast. I want it manufactured on the East Coast, and vice versa. In California, Washington, wherever that's being manufactured and consumed, they want it made there. So it's happening. It is happening. I think over the next couple of years, you're going to see a stronger and stronger push for more domestic. And from SOCMA's perspective, our remit is North America. So when we talk about domestic, yes, it is the U.S., but it's also including Mexico and Canada as well, because our remit is North America as a whole.
That's so interesting. So, how much are things like reliability, being ready for regulations, and just having a solid backup plan starting to shape how companies choose, who they work with?
Right. So as we collect our data, we also try to validate our data. So the Contract Manufacturing Outlook report shows that reliability is a big deal. Our Q1 Pulse poll validated that. because we see CapEx being spent on reliability and or specific customer projects, right? So the manufacturers understand the need for reliability, and they're pumping money into this to make sure that they are able to sustain reliability. Now, I would take that a step farther. It's not just reliability, it's trust. So when the customer places an order with you, they're putting their trust in you that you're going to meet their demand. And that trust is everything. I think at this point, it's stronger than pricing. It's stronger than available capacity. It's really about trust. Can you meet me where I'm at and meet my needs? But also, if you can't, are you going to communicate with me? Right? If there are trials, they need to know that there are trials that are, at the forefront. They're willing to discuss those. And if you're showing that level of trust, you're going to just get business, repeat business from these customers over and over again, because they know what they're getting. It's not just the product. It's not just the quality of the product, but they know the level of service they're getting from the manufacturer, which is everything.
And I think that was definitely also, as Joe said, that was reinforced too on our panel at the show. That was actually, being able to have that trust and reliability with your customer was just, again, it was just reinforced so strongly with our panel at the show.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you guys more. And so taking another step with the report, it also points out to evolution, not just in chemistry and operations, but in people and systems. So are you seeing any trends around the workforce stability in the next generation entering the chemical manufacturer space?
Yeah, so the baby boomers have about 10 years left before they're totally phased out, right? The data that I'm seeing is approximately 11,000 retirements per day of the baby boomers. By 2035, they're pretty much going to be phased out. It's going to be up to Gen X and millennials and whatnot to fill those spaces. The problem is that the baby boomers, as they retire, they're also they're taking with them intellectual property, right? So the company needs to, the manufacturer, the company, the customer, they need to understand that, and they need to put programs in place to make sure that there's the efficient, effective transfer of knowledge onto the younger generations. With that being said, Gen X is one of the smallest generations, right? So we have a period of time, and then it's going to be the millennials. The millennials is actually a decent sized generation. The differences that we're seeing, though, is the baby boomers, those of us that are Gen X, we did not grow up with the same level of technology that the millennials have grown up with. Gen Z is growing up with, right? The level of technology, the use of automation, AI, this predictive AI, and all of these different tools that are available are going to play a very important part in the industry as we move forward. So it's just something that has to be watched. This is something that companies need to jump on sooner rather than later, because if you wait too long, you're gonna miss the ship, right? Ship's at the dock right now. We gotta hop on. This is tough stuff to deal with, right? You got to digitize everything. You got to analyze all of these different things that have to happen. But 5 years from now, where are we going to be? Technology is improving so quickly. 5 years from now, it may just be too late in order to continue to grow your business. I mean, you might be able to survive, but are you actually going to be growing? Are you going to be positioned at the right place in order to continue to expand, grow, and be the manufacturer that you want to be?
Yeah. And Joe, how do you think manufacturers are investing in automation, like you were talking about, and digital tools and cybersecurity to, obviously support long-term growth?
Yeah, so it's definitely happening. It's easier to invest in automation if you're building a new site, right? It's more difficult to transition a legacy site over to automation, but it is happening. We're seeing CapEx on the reliability side. We believe that is not only mechanical integrity and things of that nature, but it's also some automation. But again, automation is difficult. You got to have the correct backbone in place in order to handle the data flow. And that's just going to take time. So those that have done it, they're moving ahead full steam. I think we have some laggards now that are adopting it, and it's just going to take time for them to move forward. And I would urge anyone that has not started this process to start tomorrow. Get it, jump on board and start. You can call us. We can help. Get the understanding of what those first steps are. We can even survey our members for platforms and whatnot. But it's really you got to start this process. And I think the most effective way is use the younger generation.
I mean, this kind of ties into what you were talking about with the younger generation. So, why do you think this is a good time for the younger professionals to start looking at a career in chemical manufacturing?
One, the technology, right? They understand the technology. The need for technology in the chemical manufacturing space is going to be huge. And that's not going away. But I also think if you look at historically, if you look at the chemists, the chemical engineers, enrollment in college, that has declined. So we're going to get to a point where we need additional chemists, chemical engineers, other engineers, right? So mechanical, environmental, whatever they may be. We're going to need those people in order to continue this workforce in the chemical industry. There are other supporting careers that need to be thought about. And it's okay if you're not good at math. Maybe you don't want to be an engineer. Maybe you don't want to be a chemist. But there are other things that you can do to support the industry to grow. And I think we need to start focusing a little bit on the grassroots here. We got to get embedded into schools a little bit earlier. We got to make sure that we're having these conversations. Generally speaking, I think general population sees chemicals as a bad thing, but we need them to understand. We need those people to understand that the soaps, the detergents, they're all surfactants, right? They're chemistry. The cleaning agents that they're using in their homes and whatnot, those are all chemistry. The medications that they're taking, again, all chemistry. They may not be marketed as chemistry from those brand products, but they are chemistry, and they're very important for life as we know it.
So, and also just to go back to our, from a membership perspective, I know we do have a lot of our member companies that are getting into, local schools and universities and doing demonstrations, working with those, youngsters to be able to share, what they're doing and how, the thing about it is going back to Joe's, thought that sometimes people view chemicals in a negative light, but being able to, these communities like your own there with CPS and others, the folks working at those plants are your neighbors. They're your family members. They are a part of that community, and understanding that what they're doing has such an impact, as Joe said, on every single thing, the contact lenses pliable, the hardening on our gel fingertips here. I know we did that. I remember the video we did at the show, but those types of things, people, I don't think they really realize that specialty batch manufacturing makes all of that happen. And so, and agreed with Joe. I mean, for us to be able to, a lot of our companies do, and member companies do that, is that it's such an important aspect of being a part of that community. Take a little bit of time to go into the schools and maybe host a class once a year at least, or, once a quarter, however, that could work out. But really encouraging people in our community too. And I know SOCMA has even recognized companies in the past who've done that, through our awards program. So again, that's something, as Joe said, that as an industry, we do, we definitely need to step up the game and do and educate folks as to what and how important this is to their life.
Nope, I absolutely agree with you both. Yeah, it's pretty interesting how much of what we do, and I say it in one of our videos for our website, it's amazing what we do and what it goes into. You would never think of it, but it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I mean, all these kids walking around and adults too with a smartphone, and knowing that smartphone cannot work at all without specialty chemicals, and so again, I don't think people realize that. They think about a chemical in a product that, a liquid chemical or whatever, but they don't think about the electronics, the chips, the different things that are critical that make that happen. So again, it's more education, as you said, to help people know what that is.
No, perfect. So we're going to go into a new topic here because I kind of want the audience to kind of understand, how SOCMA supports members on a different outlook. So, SOCMA gathers a significant amount of industry data, including the Outlook report that we had spoken about in the quarterly polls. So how do you think these tools help SOCMA members make more informed decisions? I mean, Joe, you kind of did speak a little bit on it too, like how the report is giving information to the members and they're basing a lot of decisions off of things. But how do you think these tools are helping them?
Yeah, so I think the biggest help here is going back to something Jenny said earlier, and that is companies need to know that they're not alone, right? Our industry, when we feel pressure as a whole. Again, sector specific may shift a little bit, but generally speaking, we feel the same pressures. So no one's alone. But then when we see shifts in the needed chemistries or the unit ops that are needed, distillation, things like that, we start seeing the data trend in upward toward an upward peak. That can really help a company either validate a decision that they've already made. Maybe they're investing capex to install a new unit op. Maybe they have hired chemists so that they can start exploring new chemistries, going back to the esterification, things like that, right? So it really it paints a picture of what the customer is looking for. It also paints a picture of what the customer has been looking for over the past number of years, 3 years or so, and can really be used as a tool to navigate your business either on course or maybe you need to change the trajectory slightly. But it's a guiding light.
A little question is, how does SOCMA take all that data and turn it into something truly useful for its members?
Yeah, so I mentioned AI previously. We utilize an AI platform to help analyze the data, pull the data together in a useful way, create these reports. We do the pulse throughout the year as well. And again, we're using AI to help find correlations, right? We need the trends. We need to understand the responses that we're seeing. So what does Q1's pulse poll, how does that tie back to last year's contract manufacturing outlook survey? It actually ties very well, correlates very well, right? It validates it. But the next step is it looks forward the next 6 to 9 months and really hones in on what people think may be the stressors. So customer demand, for instance, that was one of the peaks that we saw this year. Customer demand may be an issue later in the year. Maybe, not a guarantee, but maybe. It also shows the intensity or the level of capex spend. So again, capex spend, I would correlate to confidence. If someone's spending money, or if a large group of people or companies are spending money, there's confidence there. It's when they start retracting on that spend is when you get concerned. We're seeing the spend happen, right? So when we take all of this information, we use AI to analyze it. We then push it back out. And this goes back to the question you just asked, how are these tools used? It provides that guiding light so that you get a comfort of where you're at and how other companies are operating in the same atmosphere.
Taking that information, and bringing everything together with the membership, why are partnerships between the organizations like SOCMA and companies like Custom Processing Services so important for the health of the industry?
So, SOCMA is definitely member driven. So I really have, I was going to read this one quote because I feel like that we can talk all day long about why this is important to members, but we actually had one of our members share this testimonial with us. And I feel like that this really kind of wraps it up best. It says SOCMA members are a unique group of chemical companies that hold themselves to a higher standard from a safety and regulatory aspect. We are more successful as a result of our membership. Customers know SOCMA members do it right. Companies need to understand SOCMA is not only for toll manufacturers, All specialty chemical companies benefit from membership, and we as an industry can do more if we unite. So truly, I think it's a uniting force of the industry for us to be able, again, to go up on the hill, to be able to be that voice, to provide the tools and resources. That's one thing I know, Joe, again, with the contract manufacturing outlook report, with the ChemOps training, different, tools and resources, everything is driven by our members. So if members need those tools, being a part of that association, sharing that input, helping guide those efforts, everything that's built for our members is coming from, a committee or for different people that are on an advisory group that help us build those for you. So we're not just sitting up here in Washington, D.C. throwing something at the wall to see if it sticks. It's actually being driven by our members. So I just felt like that quote was really, kind of that ultimate, here's what we think and here's how we've, come together to do that.
No, that was a great quote. And, how do you think these relationships can help elevate standards, share knowledge and support long-term growth just across the whole supply chain?
Again, I think it's the united front. A lot of our members do come to SOCMA to set that standard because they want to be a leader in being able to affect the change. So, if we're not a part of that organization that has the ability to get in front of the right people, to be able to have the resources to do that, then it really kind of falls flat, when you need those things. So I feel like that, coming together, all voices in every aspect, whether you're a proprietary product manufacturer, whether you're a toller, no matter what the case, how do we set a standard across industry that will help guide, all of them? And Joe, you can definitely jump in, I know, on some of this, but I feel like that united, we're able to build those things. We're able to set those standards, and again, I feel like without that united front, it really makes it very difficult to be able to do what we need to do to move our industry forward, to set the standards, to be able to go to the Hill, to be able to help our elected leaders understand the needs and the challenges to the industry. So we definitely want to reshore to North America, but and we're here to help you do that. So if we just had this removed, or we had a change in this piece of legislation, or, this regulatory challenge, then we would be able to more readily do that. And so, Joe, I know you have some thoughts on that as well.
Yes, I think the bigger thing to think about here is that if you're going to be a member of any organization, please be a member of SOCMA, right? But if you're going to be a member, you got to be involved. If you're not involved, you're not going to get the level of ROI out of membership is what you would want or expect. But that being said, when we have groups of companies that are using the same or similar chemistries, and we see regulatory movement, we need feedback, right? Because as we make comments, as we're lobbying, making comments, the larger the perspective that we can focus in on, the more or the closer we can get or target our influence and get the regulatory environment to kind of shift the way we would like to see it shift for our members to manufacture that chemistry. So again, it's if we have one company that responds, that uses that, and there's 50 other companies, we're losing the voice. Where if more people come together and we share that information, we can just hone in on exactly what's needed and really make a difference. And that's what SOCMA does. I mean, that's why Jenny mentioned we have committees, right? Everything that we do is run by a committee or a working group. Even the Outlook survey that we run, there are non-members of SOCMA that work on that working group, right? Some larger organizations, they're not a member, but they see the value in the data that we're collecting, and they're driving that survey forward to help themselves as well.
And just to build on this one last thing, it was talking about our members and the voice too, and how we can affect change. SOCMA has had our members testify before congressional hearings on TSCA. They've testified before the U.S. Trade Commission. They've testified, they work with DHS to have, to build a, how do you handle a DHS audit, when it was the chemical site security. So again, SOCMA and our members definitely play a critical role. And so we encourage all of our members to get involved and help us be that voice and have that, that voice in DC and on the Hill. Yeah.
Well, Jenny and Joe, I just want to thank you both for, sharing your insights on SOCMA and the contract manufacturing outlook and the broader state of the industry. And I have to say, we definitely value our relationship with SOCMA. We enjoy going to the trade show every year. It's one of our favorite shows that we go to, and we just appreciate everything you guys are doing for the industry. So kudos to all of you and your team. You're doing a wonderful job. And I just want to thank everyone for tuning into this month's Custom Processing Services Toll Manufacturing Minute. To learn more about how CPS partners with organizations like SOCMA or how CPS can support your processing needs, just reach out to me anytime. And be sure to subscribe to the CPS blog to rewatch and catch up on the podcast episodes and get the latest news and insights from our experts. And we'll catch you next time.